Hello, my name is Derek Verdorn. I am a secondary education major at Minnesota State University. I'm going to do a little bit of talking today about the whole idea of paperless classroom, what that all entails, what that's about, as well as some pros, some cons to the idea, and I'm going to end by talking about its place in the future and where we can possibly see this in our classrooms. Paperless classroom is a classroom where they take your typical notebooks, your textbooks, everything that you normally use in the classroom, and you switch it with some sort of technological device, a laptop, a mobile device such as a tablet, possibly a smartphone. Um, the initial stages of switching your classroom to paperless are actually fairly simple. Besides getting the funding for the technology, the process begins with the teachers converting their materials into electronic copies. In most cases, these materials do not differ much at all from what they originally were on paper. And these resources are actually become much easier to share and collect when they're online and easily accessible for anyone to use. Um, and like I was saying, how textbooks and all that and your note taking is used on your mobile device. It would be similar with exams, assignments, as well as access to grades and course material. That is all there for your students to access online, as well as multiple apps, tools, and other things at their disposal. One of the benefits of the whole idea of a paperless classroom is it allows for a lot of leisure and flexibility. It allows for students and teachers to complete tasks at times when it works best for them. For example, if a teacher is trying to show a video in class, not everyone needs to necessarily watch it while we're in class, or maybe she doesn't even take the time to display it in class, but it is at the disposal of their students to watch it and view it wherever and whenever they like and which best most suitable for them. Another benefit of the idea is the large availability of resources. Multiple people can be using the same source or their own tablet, for example, at the same time. For example, like an older style learning would rely a lot on an encyclopedia or other informational textbooks out there, but that is very limited information, and a lot of that can be dated. Whereas if you have access to the internet, students are able to use the same sources, they're able to access the same materials, and they're able to expand their horizons and get multiple sources, multiple ideas for research and other assignments throughout the year. Um, it also allows for a lot of organization. Teachers are able to post rubrics and class schedules online for everyone to access. Come on. I mean, there's a lot of times where we make mistakes. We misplace those all important class syllabuses that they hand out on the first day, or we forget to write down an important due date of a test or an upcoming assignment. Um, Having this all online and access 24/7 really limits the opportunity for students to make excuses. Whereas, I didn't know we had this due, or oh, I didn't know it had to be in that format. When it's online and out there, it's available for everyone to use. There isn't that opportunity for them to complain and get out of assignments. And then that leads me to the next one, assignments. Students are also able to submit their homework online, whether that be at home or before class and during school times. It gives more flexibility with that, and it allows them to hand it in when they are ready and when they are done. Um, it also is easier for the teachers as well because it allows everything's going to be in the same place. You're not going to have to worry about misplacing a student's work or um, wondering, oh shoot, did I give them the right grade? You can always go back and check on it, and it's going to be a lot easier than if you were to have paper copies and have to organize all things that way. Another pro of the whole idea is collaboration. It allows students to collaborate on a whole nother level rather than a face-to-face or just in groups or in the old typical classroom discussion. Collaborating, they are able to work on group projects and share ideas with each other, whether they are in the class or at their homes. Let's say a question arises about a past assignment. There's it's easy for another student to help that student out if they have a discussion board, or maybe even the teacher can get to them in a more timely manner rather than having to wait for help and show up the next day of class unprepared and not understanding exactly what you all need to know. Another important idea is how it allows for self-assessment. Students are able to go back and review their work and see how they are progressing throughout the class whenever they need. They don't need to worry about finding that extra time during class to talk with the teacher about their grades or about upcoming assignment that they may have a question about. It's out there for them whenever they need, at their disposal, no worries. Um, the last pro that I'm going to talk about the idea of paperless classroom is feedback. Students are able to receive instant feedback from their teachers as soon as their assignments are graded. They don't have to wait the next morning, worrying overnight, oh shoot, how am I going to do on the test or anything like that. They have it right away at their disposal when they need it. This also allows the students to go back and review that feedback. It allows them to go back and look at assignments that they may need for if they have questions down the road, or when they're coming up for an exam and they need to study. It allows them to go back on that material, go back on the comments that you made, and it allows them to be more prepared for what they need to do. Now I'll talk about a little bit of the downfalls or some of the cons of this whole relatively new idea of a paperless classroom. One of the first concerns is the lack of technology resources. Will all of the students be able to even access the necessary resources? What percentage of the students in your school will have internet access at home? Is it going to be more of a hassle? With textbooks, you're able to open the book, flip the pages, find the material. The school provides it. It's not that big of a deal. But if the school doesn't provide the devices, that just adds a whole nother thing that that the school is relying upon their students. And I think with that, you got to look at that and you're saying, as an educator, you want to provide your students with the materials. You don't want to have them going out searching for it, trying to catch up and having to get the materials for you and for your class. I think it also definitely there's a lack of financial resources available for the materials that are needed in order to have a paperless classroom. New technologies can be extremely expensive. They're becoming more advanced, and while yes, they may be made more cheaper, the prices necessarily aren't reflecting that way. Schools, not all schools are going to be able to afford and purchase a laptop, a tablet, an e-reader for all their students. And if that's the case, then it puts the burden on the students. And do the parents have the funds to purchase those resources? That's not going to be the case in all school districts in all locations. It's going to change from area to area, and a lot of places this idea may not work at all. There's also a loss of one-to-one or face-to-face interaction. Some students require that face-to-face interaction in order to be an effective learner. It's sometimes difficult to lose students who required a structured lesson and often fall off trail when you're relying a lot on them looking up the information and them doing the assignments rather than you necessarily having them look at you up in the front of class and speak to them. Also, in a world that is already so heavily reliant on technology and mobile communication, shouldn't we as teachers be doing our best to counter that and attempt to improve face-to-face conversations any way that we can? I think that's an important note and an important thing to remember and definitely not forget when it comes to placing a mobile device in the hands of our students. They're already have their face in front of a TV screen, a cell phone, a computer screen in a majority of their time nowadays, and I don't know if it's better to benefit and to push them to more. And not only that, but if you think in the long run, what about the effects of on their eyes? Like, would it affect their vision for constantly looking at a screen for an increased amount of time if they were looking at a screen their entire time throughout class? Um, One of the last things that I'm going to talk about in terms of cons is it can be difficult to change your ways of instruction. There are going to be those teachers who are going to be hard-headed and stubborn, are going to want to stick to the book and stick to what they're used to and stick to the old ways. And it's going to be difficult for some of those people be to attain the knowledge necessary to use some of these tools and tablets effectively and to be able to help the students with some of the questions that come up. Um, and with that, are you going to require your teachers to take a course, or are you going to have an IT department in charge of any issues that arise? It's just it all adds to the cost and it adds to possible situations that could arise in the future. And while we're talking about the future, let's get into where the future is for paperless classrooms and if that idea will stick. One of the big things out there right now is Microsoft's School of the Future. It was built in the city of Philadelphia's rough Parkside that had few school district money. Microsoft partnered with this school district and they changed their approaches to curriculum, instruction, and the hiring process of the teachers. It attracted a lot of reform-minded teachers and a lot of students who were bent on the idea of traditional teaching were much more inclined to want to work here and go to this school. Um, the initial vision was for there to be a complete paperless, textbook-less free school that would allow students to have a laptop that they were able to take home, to keep notes on, do homework, take tests, and do all essential things needed in the class. Um, Although things were difficult at first and it took some getting used to, it was actually very successful. And the school's first graduating class, all of the students were accepted into an institution of higher learning. Um, Two other characters that could have an effect on where the paperless classroom stands in the future are Bill Gates and current President Barack Obama. Um, Bill Gates and Barack Obama are in the process of becoming partners in the education reform, in which Bill Gates he already is putting forth a lot of money towards to the government and towards education, but he wants to change the way we do it and wants to fix the education system by turning it into some form of a paperless system by putting tablets and phones or laptops in the hands of every student. And that wouldn't be on the burden of parents or families. It would be a grant and a process that schools and states would apply for in order to attain the money to get the resources for their students. And I think it's a really interesting way and a really interesting thing to end on because I think with, like I said earlier about how reliant we are on technology and on mobile devices, I think we need to somewhat change the way we teach because we are teaching for people 50, 60, 70, almost 100 years ago, and we don't live that way. And I don't necessarily know if maybe paperless classroom is the exact way or the perfect method to change this and to improve our education system, but I definitely think it has some really good ideas and some really good insight about some possible changes and some possible things that couldn't come into play in the future. Um, if you have any questions, you can contact me at information at the below of the website. But also, if you're more interested in the idea, I'd like you to take a look at the video below. And it really shows a perfect example of a school district that took this idea into effect, got the funds, and really had I would say, a bit of success. It interviews students on what they thought and just shows you a little bit about what it's about and how it can work and be successful.